Meanwhile, the NFL ratings have not been bringing it. Normally a TV juggernaut for a long time, but this season has been different. League ratings are at their lowest since the 2008 season. Many consider the interest in this year's presidential election and overall cord cutting to be factors in the drop in ratings. The commissioner, Roger Goodell, though, he's got no worries.
We don't think we've lost viewers. And I think when you look at ratings, you have to go through a little deeper than that, Jared, because it's viewers, but also how long they're engaging for. And a lot of times people will leave a game for whatever reason, whether they're going to go to other programming or whether the game isn't that competitive. Those are all factors that happen. And, you know, as an example, just on the competitive, while we have very close games overall league-wide, we haven't had the closest games in primetime. Last year we did. And in 2014 we did. And ratings reflected that in the first 5 weeks at record levels.
Stephen A., the commissioner's feeling all right. He's not worried, but should he be?
Listen, how do I put this? I think that the NFL itself, their ratings aren't going anywhere. I think ultimately football is religion and everybody will grow to watch it. What I do think they should be concerned about, however, is the dilution of the product. As I've stated a week ago, I'm adamantly against Thursday night football. Adamantly against it. I don't like it. I don't think it should exist. I don't think NFL games should be played on any days other than Sunday and Monday. I think because you have it on a Thursday, because it opened up one time last year, I believe on a Wednesday, for crying out loud. I think what you have is a situation where you're so inundated with football that unless it's a particular team that you absolutely positively have to watch, you get the impression that you're not going to miss much. I think the fact that NFL is talked about religiously by many shows, including this one, ad nauseum, all day long, et cetera, the highlights, re-aired on SportsCenter all over the place. You don't have to worry about missing much if you don't watch the games while the games are on. Ultimately, you're going to get your NFL fix. But I do believe that those Thursday night games, which is putting forth a subpar product, I do believe it's hurting the brand to some degree because you're giving them a diluted version of your product. I don't think that can be ignored, and I think it's something that they have to watch out for. But football is king in America. I don't think that's going to change, and I do believe wholeheartedly that the presidential election, particularly with Donald Trump involved, definitely is affecting the ratings because you find yourself transfixed on what's transpiring on a day-to-day basis as it pertains to this election because we're seeing the election literally having morphed into reality television. And so because of that, that factors into the equation. Darren Rovell for ESPN wrote just last week, there was a line in here in 2000 during the campaign between, this is according to the NFL, between the George W. Bush and Al Gore. All four NFL broadcast partners suffered year-over-year declines. This is in 2000. Fox was down 4%, CBS was down 10%, ABC was down 7%, ESPN was down 11%. That was in 2000, when there were far less distractions then than there are now. And so if it was down then, it's perfectly understandable while it's down now. But at the same time, I think ultimately it will recover once this election is over. But they do need to get rid of Thursday night football.
No, they don't. And there's no question, I think, that the election cycle has depressed football ratings. But I don't think that this is an issue of, well, the product's watered down or whatever else. I think this is a structural issue. We mentioned cord cutting. People can pick and choose what they want to watch. They don't bundle stuff together and how they want to consume it, et cetera. You can time delay it with DVRs and get it online and do all those things. But by structural, I mean, let's take a step back. When we were kids, there were like 5 channels. You know, like, before cable TV, there weren't that many channels. So like, ratings were much higher for each. There weren't that many choices. Then there was cable TV. There were like 30 channels. Then 100 channels. Then satellite. Then the internet. Social media. You can get video games, right? Like esports stuff. And so this generation that's coming up now, I mean, even our generation started on Sesame Street. Quick cuts, quick cuts. Then MTV videos, quick cuts. And we've been conditioning we've been conditioned culturally for 40-plus years now, 50 years now, to not have very long attention spans. And when you think about at one point having 5 channels and now having, call it 1,000, necessarily you will pay less attention to each thing. I mean, there's just no, the attention is going to be divvied up finer and finer. So that's the bad news for the NFL. The ratings, I believe, will trend down relative to the way they were, and I don't think there's any stopping that. You can try to make certain fixes, but the general trend will be like this. Here's the good news. Relative to everything else, the NFL's in a great position, because the NFL has been largely immune to a lot of the things that have suppressed or depressed ratings elsewhere. The NFL is a shared experience. You call it religion, Stephen A. On a Monday night, on a Sunday night, you watch the game partly because you know everyone else is watching the game. You know, 20 years ago when DVDs, 10 years ago when DVDs were a big deal, you ever have a DVD and you have it there and you never watch it, but that same movie comes on TV, on commercial TV, and you sit there watching the movie, an inferior version of what you have on a DVD sitting 5 feet from you, and you sit through commercials and everything. Partly that has to do with the fact that you're aware it's a shared experience. It's a sense of community. Other people are doing what you're doing when you're doing it. Wait a minute. That helps the NFL because it's unique in that way. So even as its ratings in an absolute sense will decline, in a relative sense compared to everyone else, it is a shared experience unlike anything else. So I actually think it becomes increasingly valuable.
Max, I'm not sure I agree with you there, but I'm open to the possibility that I could be wrong on this. Let me just give you a perspective from this point. I watch stuff because of what we do for a living and how I want to be connected to what I know other people are connected to. So when we're talking about something, we're doing this for the people. We're not up here talking about what we want to talk about, and that's it. We're talking about things we know people want to hear about and are talking about themselves. So on that note, in that respect, you're right. But at the same time, because we're inundated with so many options, interest does play a role. I must confess to you, if a Thursday night game ain't that interesting to me, I ain't going to watch so much of it. I might watch it enough to be able to say what I want to say.
I want to piggyback off that point.
I don't know.
Go ahead. I just want to make a comment about that. You're right. People, and this is what I mean by the new reality. It's a new reality. People are not consuming as much NFL at a time as they used to. But when you look at the numbers, Commissioner Goodell is actually telling the truth. The absolute number of people watching actually can tick up, but the time spent watching is going down. And given the number of entertainment choices people have, I don't think that's ever going to change.
Well, listen, time spent watching, in my estimation, is all about interest. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, when you look at time spent, I'm sorry to put it out there, but I just think it's necessary. If you look at time spent watching other people, and then you look at time spent watching me in sports, the number's usually higher. But the point that I'm trying to make to you
that's actually true.
It all depends. It's actually true.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just true. I'm just telling the truth.
Yeah,
I'm not bragging.
Facts.
I'm just telling the truth.
Yeah.
My point to you is that, so even though people are spending less time watching, they still know what interests them and what does not. And I think when you point to that, what Goodell has to be careful about, he said something, and the Players Association should be happy about this. Because Goodell should have said, I was concerned about the ratings. But the fact that he was willing to enunciate the reality that people are still watching, but they're watching different, from different avenues. It's not just television. It's on their smartphone. It's online. It's all of these different things. The Players Association, who's on the record, by the way, saying they were very concerned about viewership on television. They were very concerned about attendance at games, et cetera, et cetera. They have to make sure they find a way to monetize this. Because, again, that's where the proof in the pudding is going to come from.
Let me just be very clear.
If he's saying everybody's watching, The Players Association should be able to assist in monetizing that for themselves. And if they can't, that means Goodell wasn't telling the truth.
Let me just be very
You
clear.
see what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. Let me be very clear what I mean with, in an absolute sense, they could be declining because of attention spans. In a relative sense, the NFL becomes more valuable. I'm just making up numbers here. But if the NFL is doing a 20 once upon a time, and the second best show is doing a 15, and now it's doing a 10, and the second best show is doing a 5, I'm just making round numbers. You know, in an absolute sense, it's going down. In a relative sense, it's going up because now instead of 50% more valuable, it's 100% more valuable than the competitor. I think that's what's happening with the NFL. I don't think they have anything to worry about in that sense.
I hope you're right.